You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends. Welcome back. And if three companies control a marketplace, can you call it a marketplace? Visa, MasterCard, and American Express control 93% of the entire marketplace for credit cards. They get to define what what are called interchange fees, which, by the way, have gone from in 2002 under $20 billion to in 2007 over $45 billion. That's the amount of money that they charge merchants. They get to control that. They get to control what they charge us. They get to control what interest rates they charge. They pretty much operate without competition. And in the United States, the top four credit card issuers, Citigroup, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Capital One. Four companies control 70% of the total credit card market. This is not a marketplace. And because it's not a marketplace, in my opinion, it needs to be regulated. John Berlau is with us. He is the director of the Center for Investors and Entrepreneurs at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. CEI.org is the website. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Good to be on again.
Great to have you back with us, John. You work with a conservative think tank. I know you guys have been
free market think tank.
Free market think tank.
Libertarian.
Yeah, I know. It's the conservative word has become a dirty word these days.
No, it just more accurately describes who we are.
Okay,
that's okay.
All right. Free market. What does free market mean?
Well, free market means allowing people to make choices, whether it's gambling or whether you want to smoke marijuana or what kind of transaction you want to get into, say with a lender or say with an investor to start a new business.
So if I want to, so you think there should be no regulation of business at all, no rules for the game?
I think fraud should be, deception, fraud, as well as force, somebody holding a gun to your head, but also
you're reciting the libertarian mantra. Well, I guess that's what you said you are. Okay, we'll have that debate some other time. Let's talk about credit cards.
Right.
There is no free market in credit cards right now. I think I just laid that out for you. Will you agree?
There is a competitive market that can be made more free. I talk about ways to do that in a paper. I think allowing some retailers actually to issue their own credit cards.
There's hundreds of retailers that already issue credit cards. They can't compete with these companies.
They can't have an industrial. Remember, there was restrictions on it was on targeted at Walmart. Also affected other banks from allowing them to own their own banks. That would save on processing fees. And Walmart, not just Walmart, but Home Depot, others wanted to do that. I talk about that in a paper on CEI.org, but also retailers are trying to shift some of their costs to consumers, which I don't think is fair, which some liberals and conservatives have questioned through the interchange fee caps.
What the bottom line here? We've got there's legislation. John Tierney has put together legislation to cap. It's called the Americans' Commitment to Consumers Act, Renewing America's Commitment to Consumers Act, and it caps credit card interest rates at 16%. And people they're having their credit card rates jacked up to 29.9% right now, just all across the United States. People who have, very, very good credit. The banksters are just, they're reaming us. And these are the kind of usurious rates that used to be the sole province of the mafia. What's wrong with simply saying, okay, guys, the rules of the game, we're going to create a marketplace for you in which you can operate. We're going to pay for the court system, so you can enforce your contracts. We're going to pay for the jails so that when people don't do it right, the Bernie Madoffs of the world, we got a place to put them, or the Ken Lays of the world, when they're not playing by the rules. We're going to create this environment. We're going to create the soil in which, as a business, you can grow. In exchange for that, you've got to operate in a way that serves the public. You can't charge more than 16% interest. What's wrong with that?
Well, Tom, what's wrong with that? If someone, say, really wants a washer and dryer, or if they really just want some people, the Kaufman Foundation in Kansas City, Missouri, found a lot of people use personal credit cards to start their first business. That's actually what Sergey Brin was using to start Google at Stanford. If they want to, understand the terms, want to pay more than 60%, why should we stop them? If you put this arbitrary cap on, then some people, because they're taking the companies, including the small small and big banks that issue cards are taking the risk of default. So sometimes, so if consumers want, or whoever's using it want to pay more than that, I guess the question is, why shouldn't they be able to?
Well, because ultimately it's not in their best interest, and it comes back to bite them. And there's a lot of consumers who right now, think that they signed up for a 5 or 10% interest rate, and then all of a sudden the bank just arbitrarily decides, okay, we're taking it to 30%. Shouldn't they have some confidence in knowing that it's never going to go above 16%? I mean, you're talking about people starting businesses. In 1983, Louise and I started a travel business in Atlanta, international wholesale travel, and which from that day until this day, it's still doing business as Sprayberry Travels, a retail travel agency in Atlanta, has done $250 million in business, right? I mean, we've created jobs, we've created economic activity. We sold that company in 1986 when it was a $6 million company. We built it from nothing to a $6 million company and then sold it. They now do about $25 million a year in business. We started that company with a $10,000 line of credit on my American Express card. But at the time, I knew that American Express was never going to charge me more than, as I recall, 10 or 11%. I mean, this was before the explosions came in that stuff. I had some safe prediction that in the year that I was using that line of credit, I wasn't going to get nailed. People don't have that anymore.
I mean, again, it depends. I mean, people should always be careful shopping around what their contract says when they can raise interest rate. I know there have been some restrictions on retroactive rate increases, but again, I think.
So you're in favor of government restrictions?
I'm in favor of as I said, fraud and deception, but I think a 16% across the board, rather than just saying a maximum rate, like any type of price controls, is going to limit the amount of credit. Also, for people who pay off their loans, and it might mean the return of things like annual fees, less airline miles, some of the benefits that you get, including for some of the charity cards, that some of that will have to be eliminated if you.
But people are paying for all that stuff. None of that stuff is free.
If you're now what they call a convenience user, and there are millions of people who fit the category, pay off most of their
right.
of their balance at the end of the month, you don't get charged interest, and you get frequent flyer miles, and that's
right.
Some of the thrifty people who do this are going because someone has to pay. If you put on risks on high risk users, they're going to be less available.
No, but John, I'm one of those people. I pay off my credit card balance every month, and I take the frequent flyer miles. I'm fortunate that I have enough income that I can do that. Thank God, and knock on wood. But the reality is that when I use my credit card, the company is still, the company that I use it at is still paying 2.5%, 3%. I mean, the credit card company's still making money off me, even though they're not making money off interest on me. And that's the interchange fees. In fact, they've doubled their interchange fees in the last 10 years. There's calls to limit those as well. If we have, again, back to the question, if there are 3 credit card companies that control 93% of the market and 4 banks that control over 70% of the issuing of these credit cards, isn't that a monopoly? And as such, shouldn't it be regulated?
Well, as I said, there are ways to make the market more competitive. I talked about letting retailers form industrial lending companies, but I think what retailers, giant retailers like 7-Eleven and trade associations that represent Walmart, that your listeners and everyone should be aware of, is they're trying to glom on to this, to the anti-credit card campaign, and shift their costs, their interchange fees that they pay on to consumers. If they put a price cap on consumers, and they try this on interchange fees that businesses pay, and they tried this in Australia, it meant the consumers got less frequent flyer miles, and the retailers didn't lower their prices at all. There's no evidence that retailers in Australia lowered their prices after they got this billions in savings from fees. So Brad Sherman recently said it's a giant subsidy. It's a giant subsidy for Walmart.
Somebody's going to make the money somehow, somewhere. But it just seems to me like the consumers should have some protections. Anyhow, John, you can read all about it over at CEI.org. John Berlau, the director of the Center for Investment and Entrepreneurs at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Thanks, John.
Tom, thank you so much.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.